Maya's world collapsed when the pregnancy test turned positive. Her 10-year-old daughter was expecting, and no one could explain why. As the truth twisted into a nightmare, she realized the answer might be darker than any horror she'd ever feared. If this sent chills down your spine, smash that like button, drop your theories in the comments, subscribe now and brace yourself, because what comes next will haunt you forever. Maya jolted awake, the sound of glass shattering echoing through the small house. She bolted upright, her heart pounding in her chest as the adrenaline surged through her veins. "Amy!" Her voice cracked with panic as she scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over the twisted sheets. The morning sun hadn't yet broken through the blinds, casting the room in a dim, eerie light. She rushed down the narrow hallway, her bare feet slapping against the cold, wooden floor. Reaching Amy's room, Maya found her daughter sitting in the corner, eyes wide with fear, clutching her stomach. Shards of glass from a fallen picture frame were scattered across the floor. "Mum, it hurts." Amy's voice was weak, trembling. Her tiny hands were clutching her swollen abdomen, the skin beneath her fingers taut and pale. Maya's breath hitched as she took in the sight. Her 10-year-old daughter, face pale as a sheet, doubled over in pain. Maya dropped to her knees beside her daughter, her hands shaking as she reached out to touch her. "Amy, what happened?" she whispered, trying to keep her voice calm, though every fiber of her being was screaming in terror. "I don't know," Amy whimpered. "It just hurts so much, Mom. And I feel sick." Maya's mind raced, trying to piece together what could possibly be wrong. The last few weeks had been filled with oddities: morning dizziness, nausea, a sudden aversion to food she once loved, and now this. Amy had been complaining about her stomach for days, but Maya had brushed it off as a stomach bug or something she'd eaten. But now, seeing her daughter in such obvious pain, the symptoms couldn't be ignored. Her eyes drifted to Amy's abdomen, noticing how it seemed to be even more swollen than the day before. The image of her daughter's tiny, distended belly sent a wave of nausea crashing over Maya. It wasn't just the swelling. Amy's breasts had started to develop too, far more rapidly than they should have at her age. The word pregnancy slithered into her mind, cold and unwelcome. Maya quickly shook her head, refusing to entertain the thought. "No, that's impossible," she told herself. Amy is only 10. But the idea planted itself firmly in her mind, growing roots in her fear. "I'm going to get you something for the pain, okay?" Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. She stood, almost stumbling over the glass again, but Amy's small voice stopped her. "Mum, I don't want anything. It hurts too much." Maya's heart broke at the sound of her daughter's pain. She had to do something, anything to help her. But what could it be? What if it wasn't just a stomach bug? What if it was something much worse? The thought clawed at her, dragging her down into a whirlpool of panic and dread. She managed to get Amy to lie back down in bed, the covers pulled up around her shoulders. Amy's eyes were already drooping, the pain exhausting her small body. Maya watched her for a moment, 1,000 thoughts racing through her mind. This isn't normal. This can't be normal. She hurried back to her bedroom, fumbling in the dark for her phone. As she dialed the number for the local pharmacy, her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. Her thoughts were jumbled, a tangled mess of fear and confusion. "I need a pregnancy test," she blurted out when the pharmacist picked up, her voice raw and frantic. A pause. "Ma'am, how old is the person needing the test?" Maya swallowed hard, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. 10, she whispered, barely able to get the word out. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Ma'am, I think you should—" I know, Maya interrupted, her voice breaking. but I need to be sure. I need to know." She hung up without waiting for a response, her mind already racing ahead to the next step. She had to do this. Even if the thought was absurd, she had to know. She grabbed her keys, glancing once more at Amy's door before heading out. The drive to the pharmacy was a blur, her thoughts a chaotic mess of fear and disbelief. "This isn't real," she kept telling herself. "This can't be real." But as she pulled into the parking lot, a cold, hard certainty settled in her chest. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Maya practically ran into the store, her movements quick and jerky, like a woman possessed. She grabbed the first test she saw and paid without a word, ignoring the concerned looks from the cashier. She needed to get home, needed to know if her worst fears were about to come true. Back at the house, she found Amy still asleep, her breathing shallow and labored. Maya's hands trembled as she shook her daughter awake. "Sweetie, I need you to do something for me, okay?" Amy blinked up at her, confused and still half asleep. "What is it, Mom?" Maya's voice cracked as she handed her the test. I just need you to do this, okay? It's just to make sure everything's okay." Amy nodded sleepily, too tired to argue. Maya led her to the bathroom, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own thoughts. They waited together in the small, cramped space, the silence between them thick with tension. When the result finally appeared, Maya's blood ran cold. She stared at the little window, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under her, leaving her floating in a sea of shock and disbelief. No, this can't be right," she whispered, her voice shaking. But there it was, clear as day. Positive. Amy's eyes were wide with confusion as she looked up at her mother. "Mom, what does it mean?" Maya forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It just means we need to see the doctor, honey. They'll help us figure out what's going on." She hugged Amy tightly, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts, none of them good. "What do I do now?" she wondered, the weight of the world pressing down on her chest. "How do I fix this?" And in that moment, Maya knew that nothing in their lives would ever be the same again. Maya sat in the dimly lit waiting room of Dr. Reyes's clinic, her heart pounding with an anxiety she hadn't felt since her teenage years. The antiseptic smell of the room, the cold, hard chairs, the faint sound of murmured conversations from the rooms down the hall. All of it was too familiar, too close to memories she'd buried long ago. Her eyes kept darting toward Amy, who sat quietly beside her, legs dangling from the chair, swinging back and forth in that innocent way children do when they're unaware of the gravity of the situation. Maya's eyes involuntarily dropped to her daughter's slightly swollen abdomen. How? The question had been looping in her mind since she saw the positive pregnancy test earlier that morning. Dr. Reyes' door opened, and he stepped out, his usual warm smile replaced by a look of concern. He was a kind man, middle-aged with grey creeping into his hair, and he'd been Maya's neighbour and friend for years. But today, he was the doctor first, and the friend second. "Come on in," he said gently, holding the door open for them. Maya took Amy's hand, squeezing it slightly as they entered the office. Dr. Reyes began with the usual checks: height, weight, blood pressure. But Maya could see in his eyes that these were just formalities. His real focus was on the tests that had been run earlier. She watched as he pulled up the results on his computer, his brow furrowing slightly as he read. Finally, he turned to face them, his expression grave. "Maya, Amy," he began, his voice measured and careful. "The tests have confirmed what we feared. Amy is about 3.5 months pregnant. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maya felt the room spin around her, the edges of her vision blurring as she tried to process what she'd just heard. No, that can't be right, she stammered, her voice a shaky whisper. She's only 10 years old, Dr. Reyes. She's never been alone with a man. This has to be a mistake. Dr. Reyes sighed deeply, his eyes full of the empathy that came from years of delivering hard news. I'm afraid the tests are accurate, Maya. This is a very serious situation. Legally, I'm required to report this to the authorities, regardless of the circumstances. Maya's heart hammered in her chest, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. There must be another explanation. She's just a child. I understand how impossible this seems, Dr. Reyes said, leaning forward slightly, his tone gentle but firm. But we have to consider every possibility, even the ones that don't make sense right now. Maya turned to Amy, who was looking up at her with wide, confused eyes. She crouched down beside the table, taking Amy's small hands in hers, feeling the softness of her daughter's skin, the tiny tremble of her fingers. How could this be happening? How could she explain something so incomprehensible to her innocent little girl? Amy, my love, Maya began, her voice trembling. I need you to tell me the truth. Have you ever been alone with a man? Someone who isn't Mommy? Amy's brow furrowed in confusion. No, Mommy, just you. I don't remember seeing any man, she said, her voice small. Maya took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice calm, even though she felt anything but. And has anyone touched you? Anywhere private? At home, at the store, at the park? She hated herself for having to ask, but the question was necessary. Amy shook her head, her eyes welling up with tears. No, Mommy. I promise. Maya glanced back at Dr. Reyes, who was watching them closely, his face lined with concern. The pieces didn't fit. There had to be something she was missing, something that would make sense of this nightmare. But no matter how hard she tried, nothing made sense. Dr. Reyes cleared his throat, breaking the heavy silence. Maya, I think it's best if we don't jump to conclusions just yet. We need to take this one step at a time. I'll do everything I can to help you, but we have to follow the proper procedures. Maya nodded numbly, unable to form words. She felt like she was floating, disconnected from reality, as if this whole experience was happening to someone else. But it wasn't. It was her life, her daughter, her nightmare. They left the clinic in a daze, the weight of the diagnosis pressing down on Maya like a heavy shroud. She drove home in silence, her thoughts a chaotic swirl of fear, confusion, and denial. The familiar streets of their neighborhood passed by in a blur, the trees and houses blurring together as her mind replayed the doctor's words over and over. Once home, Maya set about trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, even as her mind was consumed with the horrifying reality she couldn't yet fully accept. The days following their visit to Dr. Reyes were surreal, each one filled with an uneasy blend of fear and forced normalcy. Maya decided to take an indefinite leave from work, unable to focus on anything other than her daughter's condition. She told her boss that she needed time for a family emergency, a vague explanation that thankfully wasn't questioned. Her world shrank to the confines of their small home, where she devoted herself entirely to Amy. She tried to keep their days as normal as possible, even as the weight of the unspoken hung between them. They cooked together, painted with watercolors, and tended to the flowers in the garden. It was as if Maya was trying to hold on to the last remnants of their old life. The life before everything changed. But there was a new routine that they both silently acknowledged. Amy's increasing fatigue, her frequent naps, and the moments when Maya would catch her daughter staring off into space, a distant look in her eyes. Maya's heart ached every time she saw it, a silent reminder of the storm they were both trying to weather. One afternoon, as they were playing dress-up, Amy chose an elegant dress from the back of Maya's closet. It was an old dress, one that Maya had worn to a wedding years ago, before Amy was born. Amy slipped into it easily, the fabric flowing around her small frame, the wide-brimmed hat she paired with it adding a touch of whimsy. "How do I look, Mummy?" Amy asked, twirling in the middle of the living room, her face lit up with a smile that was both innocent and beautiful. Maya watched her, feeling a pang of bitter-sweet emotion. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. My little princess," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. She wished she could freeze this moment, keep her daughter safe in this bubble of childhood innocence forever. But she knew that time was slipping away from them, that the storm was drawing closer. At night, after Amy had fallen asleep, Maya would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions and fears. The silence of the house was deafening, amplifying the noise in her head, the relentless thoughts that wouldn't let her rest. She replayed every conversation, every moment, searching for something she might have missed, some clue that would make sense of the nightmare they were living. One night, the weight of it all became too much to bear. Maya needed to talk to someone, needed to share the burden that was crushing her. She decided to go to Sergio, the man she had been seeing for several months. It wasn't that she didn't trust him. She did, deeply. But her life with Amy had always been a world apart, and she wasn't sure how to bridge that gap. But now she had no choice. She needed him, needed his strength and his love to help her through this. Maya quietly slipped out of the house, making sure the doors were locked behind her. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the suffocating warmth of the house. She drove to Sergio's place, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, her mind spinning with what she was about to tell him. When she arrived, she hesitated for a moment before knocking on his door. It was late, and she knew she was intruding, but she couldn't turn back now. She needed to share this with him, needed to feel like she wasn't alone in this nightmare. Sergio opened the door, and the concern on his face was immediate. "Maya, what's wrong?" he asked, pulling her into his arms without hesitation. Maya felt the dam of her emotions break, and she collapsed against him, her body shaking with sobs. She told him everything: Amy's pregnancy, the doctor's diagnosis, the fear that was consuming her. It all came pouring out, a torrent of words and tears that she couldn't control. Sergio held her, his arms wrapped tightly around her, his hand gently stroking her hair. "We'll figure this out, Maya," he murmured softly. "You're strong, and you're an amazing mother. We'll find a way through this. I'm here for you, and I love you. Everything's going to be okay." Maya wanted to believe him, wanted to take comfort in his words, but the fear still gnawed at her, a relentless, icy grip that wouldn't let go. She stayed with Sergio for a while longer, until the tears finally subsided, and she felt strong enough to return home. That night she crawled into bed beside Amy, needing the warmth of her daughter's presence, the simple comfort of knowing she wasn't alone in this. As they lay there, Amy sleeping peacefully, Maya stared into the darkness, her mind still racing, searching for answers in the silence. Maya spent the next morning in a fog. Maya's thoughts drifted back to the people who had been in their home in recent months. She remembered the elderly neighbors who had stopped by occasionally, the plumber who had repaired the shower. But she had always been there, always keeping a watchful eye. There was no way any of them could have done something to Amy without her noticing. One evening, Maya decided to give Amy a bath. It was a task Amy usually did on her own, being the independent little girl she was, but tonight, Maya wanted to do it herself. As she helped her daughter into the warm water, washing her hair and soaping her small body, Maya's heart ached with a love so fierce it nearly brought her to tears. As she rinsed the soap from Amy's body, Maya noticed something that made her freeze. Amy's integrity seemed completely intact. There were no signs of any physical trauma, nothing to suggest that anyone had violated her in any way. Maya's hands trembled as she gently touched her daughter's skin. "Has anyone touched you here, sweetie? Have you felt any discomfort?" Amy looked up at her mother, puzzled. "No, Mom. I haven't felt any discomfort. And no one has touched me there." Maya's heart sank even further. If Amy's body showed no signs of harm, then how was this happening? How could she be pregnant if there had been no contact? The situation was becoming more surreal by the minute. Alarmed and desperate, Maya decided to take Amy back to Dr. Reyes. She couldn't make sense of this on her own, and she needed the doctor's help to unravel the mystery. Upon arriving at the clinic, Dr. Reyes greeted them with a serious expression. After hearing Maya's concerns, he furrowed his brow, clearly as baffled as she was. Maya watched as the doctor meticulously examined Amy. The room was thick with tension, each second stretching into an eternity. Finally, Dr. Reyes straightened up, his face grave. "This can't be possible," he murmured, visibly shaken. "Maya, her physical integrity is intact. There's no sign of any contact." Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. The situation had just shifted from terrifying to incomprehensible. "But how is this possible?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and confusion. "I don't know," Dr. Reyes admitted, his voice low. "But we will find out. This case is very strange and requires more attention." He took a deep breath, determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. "I'll proceed with an ultrasound as a final confirmation." Maya held her breath as Dr. Reyes prepared the equipment. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the machine. And then, on the screen, the unmistakable image of a fetus appeared. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in short, shaky gasps. It was real. Amy was indeed pregnant. There was no denying it now. With a trembling voice and eyes full of tears, Maya turned to Dr. Reyes. "Doctor, Amy is prepubescent. She hasn't even had her first period. This all seems unreal. How could this be happening?" The doctor looked at her with astonishment, his mind racing to make sense of the impossible. He took a moment to process the information, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. "I'm going to need more time," he finally said, his voice carefully measured. "I need to consult with some specialist colleagues, but I must do so without revealing who the patient is, for obvious reasons." Maya nodded, feeling more lost than ever. The world around her seemed to be slipping further into madness, and she was powerless to stop it. Meanwhile, Amy continued playing with the instruments in the examination room, unaware of the seriousness of the moment. "Mum, why are we here again?" Amy asked innocently, looking up from the stethoscope she was playing with. Maya forced a smile, trying to hide the turmoil inside her. "It's just a checkup, honey. Everything will be fine." The following days passed in a daze. Maya tried to keep things as normal as possible, but the weight of the mystery hung over her like a dark cloud. She and Amy continued their daily routine, cooking together, painting with watercolors, and playing dress-up. One afternoon, Amy decided to dress up as Britney Spears, one of her favorite singers. She twirled around the living room in a sparkly outfit and a blonde wig, her face lit up with a carefree smile. "Look, Mum, how'd I look?" Amy asked, giggling as she struck a pose. Maya laughed along with her, though her heart wasn't in it. "You look great," she replied, trying to keep the darkness at bay. Suddenly, the phone rang, startling her. Maya's heart leapt into her throat as she picked it up, hoping for some kind of resolution. "Yes, Doctor?" she asked, her voice tense with a mix of anxiety and hope. "Maya, my colleagues and I have reviewed the case again," Dr. Reyes began, his voice heavy with concern. "We agree that there is no possibility that Aimee could be pregnant without having had relations with a man, unless she had in vitro fertilization, which is completely ruled out. It's a total mystery." Maya felt a wave of despair crash over her. "What do we do now, Doctor?" she asked, her voice desperate. "I'm sorry, Maya," Dr. Reyes said, his frustration evident. "I'm at a loss. We've hit a dead end. I have no idea how all this is possible." As Maya tried to process this information, something in Amy's costume caught her attention. She noticed a white stain on the fabric. Her breath caught as a sudden realization hit her. "Doctor, I've discovered something that could be the answer we're looking for," Maya said urgently, her mind racing. "Let's go there immediately." "Yes, I'm waiting for you," Dr. Reyes responded, his voice filled with renewed curiosity. Maya hurriedly grabbed Amy, still dressed as Britney Spears, and they rushed out the door. She hailed the first taxi she saw and instructed the driver to take them to the doctor's office as quickly as possible. "Please hurry, it's an emergency," Maya told the driver, who nodded and sped up. During the trip, Maya looked at Amy, who was still wearing her costume, and felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew she was on the brink of unraveling the whole mess. When they finally arrived at the office, Maya paid the taxi driver and rushed inside with Amy. Dr. Reyes was waiting for them, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Still agitated, Maya asked Amy to go to the bathroom, remove all her clothes, and change into one of the gowns provided there. Amy obeyed without question, and Maya took the clothes and handed them to the doctor. After making sure Amy was in a nearby room with toys for patients her age, Maya turned to Dr. Reyes. "Doctor, examine the underwear carefully," she said, her voice tinged with nervousness. Dr. Reyes, still puzzled, examined the garment closely. His face darkened as he detected a viscous substance on the fabric. He took a sample and examined it under his microscope, his expression growing more serious by the second. To his dismay, the substance was nothing less than male ejaculate. "Where did this come from? How did it get here?" Dr. Reyes asked, astonished. Maya explained that she and Amy had been playing a dress-up game for years, with Amy often using her clothes to imitate famous characters. But how was it possible if her daughter hadn't even menstruated yet? The doctor replied, "A girl of her age can ovulate before menstruating. She must have been ovulating when her female part came into contact with the male fluid, and by accident, fertilization occurred. That explains why there were no signs of any damage to her integrity at that moment." As Dr. Reyes spoke, he seemed to recall something. "Maya, it just came to mind that there have been cases in medical history where women have become pregnant under very unusual circumstances. For example, there have been cases where women became pregnant from contact with contaminated bedding or even by sharing wet towels with traces of male fluid." Maya felt a mix of relief and surprise. "So what happened to Amy isn't as impossible as it seemed at first," she said, her voice filled with a tentative hope. "Exactly," Dr. Reyes responded. "Although these cases are extremely rare, they do happen. What's important now is to ensure that Amy receives the proper care during her pregnancy." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of solace for the first time in what seemed like forever. "Thank you, Doctor. I really don't know what we would do without you," she said, her eyes full of gratitude, a mix of relief and concern. Dr. Reyes continued, "Maya, this has been an unfortunate accident. There's no need to notify the authorities. I will continue to discreetly manage Amy's prenatal care, and when the baby is born, if necessary, I will handle confirming the story with the authorities." Maya felt immense relief upon hearing the doctor's words, knowing that they were not alone and had the support and understanding of a trusted professional. She and Amy returned home, ready to face the challenges ahead together, although Maya still didn't know how to explain to her 10-year-old daughter that a baby was on the way. The days passed slowly, each one bringing with it a new wave of fear and uncertainty. Amy's belly had grown significantly, now unmistakably pregnant. She was nearly 7 months along, but she remained blissfully unaware of the life growing inside her. Her innocence was both a blessing and a curse. Dr. Reyes had been kind and supportive, but during one of their recent visits, he had pulled Maya aside, his face drawn and serious. "Maya, I need to talk to you about Amy's condition," he had said, his voice low. "Her body is still so young, so underdeveloped. Carrying this pregnancy to term is already putting an enormous strain on her. I'm deeply concerned about the risks she'll face during childbirth." Maya had felt a cold knot of fear tighten in her stomach. "What do you mean, risks?" Dr. Reyes sighed, his expression grim. "There's a very real danger that Amy's body won't be able to handle the stress of labor. If she does go into labor, there's a chance she could die, Maya. You need to prepare yourself for that possibility." The words had hit her like a physical blow. She had known that the situation was dire, but hearing it spoken so plainly had shaken her to her core. "Is there anything we can do? Anything at all?" she had asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "We'll do everything we can to monitor her closely, and we'll be ready when the time comes," Dr. Reyes had assured her. "But you need to be prepared for the worst. It's important that you're strong for her, no matter what happens." Maya had nodded, her throat tight with unshed tears. How could she prepare herself for the possibility of losing her daughter, her only child, her whole world? The days dragged on, filled with an unbearable tension. Maya tried to keep things as normal as possible, but her fear never left her, gnawing at her insides like a relentless, hungry beast. What would happen to Amy? What would happen to their lives if the unthinkable came to pass? One morning, as Maya was preparing breakfast, she heard a sharp cry from Amy's room. Her heart lurched in her chest, and she rushed to her daughter's side, finding Amy doubled over in pain, her face pale and drawn. "Mom, my stomach hurts," Amy gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya's eyes widened in horror as she saw the dark, wet stain spreading across Amy's nightgown. Blood. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. "Oh my God, Amy!" Without wasting another second, Maya grabbed Amy and rushed her to the car, driving as fast as she could to Dr. Reyes's clinic. The drive was a blur, her thoughts a chaotic mess of fear and desperation. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not like this. When they arrived at the clinic, Dr. Reyes was already waiting for them. Amy was quickly taken to an examination room, and Maya was left pacing the hallway, her hands trembling, her mind filled with a paralyzing terror. After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Reyes emerged from the room, his face pale. "Maya, we need to act fast. Amy is going into labor and it's too soon. The baby's not ready and neither is she. There's a lot of bleeding." Maya felt her knees give way and she collapsed into a chair, her vision blurring with tears. No, please. "Not my baby," she whispered, her voice shaking. "This is my fault. If I'd been more careful, if I had protected her better." Dr. Reyes placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Maya, this isn't your fault. You did everything you could. Now you need to be strong for Amy. She needs you right now." Maya nodded, swallowing back the sobs that threatened to choke her. She had to be strong, but how could she when she was so terrified? Hours passed in a haze of fear and helplessness. Maya could hear Amy's cries from the delivery room, each one piercing her heart like a knife. The sounds of the doctors and nurses rushing around, the sterile smell of the clinic, the harsh fluorescent lights, everything felt surreal, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Then, suddenly, the cries stopped. The silence was deafening, crushing. Maya's heart clenched in her chest as she waited, praying, hoping for a miracle. Finally, Dr. Reyes emerged from the delivery room, his face drawn and exhausted. "Maya, the baby didn't make it," he said quietly. "But Amy, she's alive. She's weak, but she's alive." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was quickly followed by a crushing guilt. She rushed into the room where Amy lay, her small body pale and still, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically in the background. Maya's heart broke at the sight, and she sank to her knees beside the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Amy, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This is all my fault. I should have protected you. I should have kept you safe. Please, baby, please don't leave me. I can't lose you." For a long moment, there was no response. Then, slowly, Amy's eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at her mother, her expression gentle and full of love. "Mommy, don't cry," Amy said softly, her voice weak but steady. "I'm okay. I'm still here." Maya's breath caught in her throat as she looked into her daughter's eyes, filled with a pure, innocent love that made her heart ache. "Oh, Amy, I love you so much." Amy smiled faintly, reaching out to take her mother's hand. "I love you too, Mommy. Don't be sad. I'm okay." Maya broke down, tears flowing freely as she leaned over to hug her daughter gently, holding her close. Maya held Amy close, her tears mingling with the overwhelming relief that washed over her. The small, steady rise and fall of Amy's chest beneath her hand was the only thing grounding her in that moment. The nightmare was over, or at least this part of it was. But as she held her daughter, feeling the fragile warmth of her body, Maya knew that the real challenge was just beginning. She had to protect Amy, not just from the world, but from the truth of what had happened. The days that followed were a blur of quiet recovery. Maya made the decision that no one else would know what Amy had endured, not even Amy herself. The child had suffered enough, and Maya was determined to shield her from the harsh reality of her lost pregnancy. To Amy, it would be as though the ordeal had never happened, just a faint memory of a bad dream, quickly forgotten. When the doctors finally discharged Amy from the hospital, Maya brought her home to a house that she had carefully prepared to feel as normal and safe as possible. She had scrubbed away every trace of the terror they had lived through, filling the rooms with warmth and light. AIM, blissfully unaware of the gravity of what she had been through, stepped back into her old life as though nothing had changed. "Look, Mommy, I'm going to be a princess today," Amy exclaimed one morning, pulling out a new dress from the closet, a soft pink gown that Maya had bought in an attempt to restore some of the normalcy to their lives. Maya smiled, watching as Amy twirled around the room, the dress swirling around her small frame. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. Just like a real princess." Amy beamed, her face lighting up with the pure, unfiltered joy that only a child could experience. And in that moment, Maya realized that her decision to protect Amy from the truth had been the right one. Her daughter's innocence had been preserved, and that was the most important thing. As the days turned into weeks, life slowly resumed a semblance of normalcy. Maya returned to work, leaving Amy with a trusted neighbor during the day. But even as she tried to pick up the pieces of their lives, there was a part of her that remained on edge, always vigilant, always ready to protect Amy from the shadow of the past that lingered just out of sight. Amy, on the other hand, seemed to have bounced back completely. She spent her days playing dress-up, her imagination as vivid as ever. Maya bought her new costumes, encouraging her to explore different characters, to escape into a world of make-believe where everything was safe and happy. The bond between mother and daughter grew stronger in the aftermath of the ordeal. Maya found herself cherishing the small moments more, the simple joys of watching Amy play, of hearing her laugh, of tucking her in at night and knowing she was safe. The fear and guilt that had once gnawed at Maya's heart began to fade, replaced by a fierce determination to ensure that Amy's future would be bright and untroubled. And so, life went on. The memories of the dark days slowly faded into the background, replaced by the light of new, happier ones. Maya and Amy continued to live together, their love for each other a constant source of strength. They didn't talk about what had happened, didn't revisit the pain or the fear. Instead, they focused on the future, on the hope and optimism that had been born from the ashes of their ordeal. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me till the end of this intense story. Before we wrap up, I want to share some thoughts about Maya, the mother in our tale. While she's undeniably strong and devoted, there's no getting around the fact that her choices were deeply flawed. Maya's desire to protect Amy is understandable. But let's be real, her actions were reckless. She didn't just fail to prevent what happened, her negligence actually played a role in it. By allowing Amy to play with clothes that weren't properly checked, Maya inadvertently exposed her daughter to the unimaginable. Maya's love for Amy is clear, but love without responsibility can lead to disaster. She meant well, but her carelessness almost cost Amy her life. In the end, Maya's choices show us the importance of being vigilant and responsible as parents. But that's just my take. What do you all think? Is Maya a strong mum who made a mistake, or was she dangerously irresponsible? Let me know in the comments below. Let's talk about it.